Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 92 of Adapter Parish, E.B. White's Stuart Little. But before we join Stuart in his adventures, let's talk about our next episode. Well, actually, our next episodes. We've been having fun with the last few episodes. Read a kid's book, watch a couple movies, rinse and repeat. But now we're getting back to what we enjoy the most, reading a goddamn classic and watching 50 versions of it. This time, Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights. The book's heavy enough as it is, but as many of you know, this one's been adapted a lot. We're talking about Laurence Olivier, Richard Burton, Ian McShane, Timothy Dalton, Ralph Fiennes, Tom Hardy. All have played Heathcliff, that dark, brooding bad guy. He's a bad guy. We're calling it here. He's a bad guy. We'll be discussing all of that and more over our next two episodes. Episode 1 will be out on Tuesday, June 1st, and episode 2 will follow 2 weeks later on Tuesday, June 15th. It's a lot for us to experience all at once, so we sincerely hope you enjoy what we're doing to ourselves. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections about today's episode or any others that you'd like to hear on the show, remember to email adapterparishcast@gmail.com. If you enjoy the show, we'd love it if you would share that with the world by leaving a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. We're also on Patreon at patreon.com/adaptcast. We've got a patron-only community and our bi-weekly bonus show, Adapter Parish Plus, with episodes releasing every Tuesday between episodes of this show. We hope you check it out. Show notes from this and all other episodes can be found at adapterparishcast.com. And with that, on with the show, Adapter Parish, episode 92, Stuart Little. Hello and welcome to Adapter Parish, a podcast about adaptation. I'm Jeremy Latour.
And I'm Ari Lipshaw. We are coming to you from the past.
You're so proud of us.
The past.
When do we normally come from?
Now.
The present? Not almost the present.
Now time.
Usually, if you're listening to any of our episodes on the day they come out, for the last 2 years or so, we record them several days before they go up.
Yeah.
We're kind of, we've only run into trouble once with that.
Every week we say to ourselves, it would be great if we could get ahead. And it never happens. It never happens. We used to be 6 episodes ahead, so many. And then we had a child. That's what happened.
No, that happened before we had a kid. Don't blame him for that.
Yeah. When did it start to happen?
6 months after we started the show.
All right. So we are recording today 2 weeks before this episode comes out. We are recording the day our last episode, The Witches, came out. So if anything dramatic happened in the world in the next 2 weeks and we don't mention it, it's because we don't know about it yet.
Real time kind of thing. I literally just found out, this was literally just tweeted at us, that there was a clue on tonight's episode of Jeopardy that was The Witches.
Crazy.
I haven't even seen it yet.
Yeah.
But heard that it happened.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
All right. I think we have another confession we need to make.
What's that?
Because we've already talked about how lazy we are. Let's lean into it a little bit more. So we usually have a plan.
We always have a plan.
We have a plan. We know what episodes we're doing from now until the end of the year. But, it's fluid. It's fluid.
Yeah, but we've been doing a lot better at sticking to the plan. There was a time, and I don't know, we're showing our butts here. There was
You're showing your butt. I wasn't planning on talking about that.
A period of time that we thought we were going to do a thing and it was more work than we thought, and we didn't make it, and we were like, well, let's do this other thing and slot it in because it's less work. And we've been pretty good so far. I would say within the last year, we've been pretty good.
Yeah. I like to think that we are the podcast equivalent of Gandalf in the cart next to Frodo, informing him that a wizard is never late. He arrives precisely when he intends to.
Yes.
Did I paraphrase that, or was that
paraphrase?
Shit.
Yeah.
Well,
wizard is never late, nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.
I did a pretty good paraphrase. I knew it was wrong. But anyway, the reason I say that is because this was not part of the plan that we would be doing Stuart Little today.
Yeah. Well, what happened? Explain.
When we put our kid Calvin down
to
sleep,
sweet baby angel.
When we put him down to sleep every night, I hold him and you read 1 or 2 pages from a chapter book.
So yeah, we used to read, we were okay, what can we read him at night that's short? So we started doing poems, kids, Shel Silverstein. We went through all the Shel Silverstein books. We went through all the Jack Perletsky books. We did Winnie the Pooh.
We disagree, by the way, about Shel Silverstein and Jack Perletsky.
That's fine. We'll talk about that another time. We did like, what was it? Now We Are Six, or When We Were Very Young. We did like the A.A. Milne poems, and then we did like Winnie the Pooh, and then we were like, what do we do next? I think you suggested let's do Stuart Little, and I was like, great, let's read him Stuart Little. So we read together out loud Stuart Little, basically 1 or 2 pages at a time over the course of several weeks. And when the book was over, we turned to each other and we were like, we just read a book. Should we just do it for the show?
This is easy.
It's easy.
Well, that was one of the reasons we were doing this, is because it turned out to be easy. But here's the other reason that we did it. I have a preliminary question and then a statement.
Okay.
Question.
Yeah.
When was the last time you read Stuart Little?
Oh, I mean, as a child.
Same.
Yes.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
It ended up being so much more fun than we remember it.
Stuart Little's great. It's so good. And we already did Charlotte's Web for the show. So this, like, we can think of this as being like the second half of the E.B. White thing. Because I don't think there were any movies of The Trumpet of the Swan.
Not that I know of.
Yeah.
Didn't someone make a movie of The Elements of Style?
You know what? Now that I think about it, I think there might have been a cartoon.
Of The Elements of Style?
No, of The Trumpet of the Swan.
Oh.
Apparently it was written like under duress because he like didn't have any money and needed some. Didn't you tell me that?
I don't remember.
Anyway, so yeah, we were like, this book is great and so funny, and there's movie adaptations of it, so let's just watch them and it'll be a fun episode. So here we are. The end.
More opinions about E.B. White. I will say this. It's great in a way that is totally different to Charlotte's Web.
Yeah.
Because one of the things I love about Charlotte's Web, and people should go back to episode 50 if they haven't heard it, because I fucking love Charlotte's Web. Charlotte's Web is emotionally a beautiful book. It makes me cry every time. Stuart Little is just fun.
Yeah.
There wasn't really anything in Stuart Little that got me weepy at all. It's just a really, really fun, funny book. But I guess a lot of that humor was kind of wasted on me as a child.
As a kid, yeah. Some of it is a little more subtle. I mean, not only the humor, like, you know, in out of context is like funny, but the other thing that I really appreciated that I'm not sure you were able to appreciate, because I recently read Vacation Land by John Hodgman, and basically the bulk of the book is talking about living in the same town, which shall not be named, although I know which town it is.
Why shall it not be named?
Because in the book, he makes a big deal about trying to keep it a secret, and I want to respect his privacy.
John Hodgman.
So John Hodgman,
right,
in the book Vacation Land, talks a lot about buying a house in an unnamed town where
in Maine,
where a
which is Vacation Land.
Yes, where a famous unnamed author used to live. And he never names the author. It's like kind of the joke in the book. He never names the author. It is E.B. White. Famously, it's E.B. White.
Right. And John Hodgman came up on our Charlotte's Web episode too.
Yeah. But like one of the things I know now about E.B. White from reading Vacation Land is that he loved boats. Man, did he love boats. And Stuart Little loves boats, and E.B. White likes talking about boats and talks a lot about them.
He loves boats. I do get the feeling that Stuart Little is E.B. White.
Yeah.
What was the line when he's talking to the students? Well said, Stuart. A misspelled word is an abomination in the sight of everyone.
Yeah. There you go.
That feels like E.B. White.
I mean, he wrote The Elements of Style.
As I said.
Yes.
Let me go back for a second.
Yeah.
So this was written by E.B. White. It was his first children's book. This predated Charlotte's Web by like 7 years. It predated The Elements of Style by 14 years.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote more than just those two things.
Yeah.
I am aware of that. But basically the whole idea was he was telling like his niece or something. Like he had kids in the family,
mm-hmm.
and he was trying to come up with like a story to tell them. And this is a quote from him. Many years ago, I went to bed one night in a railway sleeping car, and during the night, I dreamed about a tiny boy who acted rather like a rat. That's how the story of Stuart Little got started.
Yeah, well, this is on the back of the book, which this is our segment, back of the book. But the back of the book is actually a biography of E.B. White, which he clearly wrote himself.
Which normally I wouldn't love, but if it's E.B. White,
it's a pure delight.
I won't just allow it; I'll invite it.
It's a pure delight, and I kind of want to read the whole thing and not just the paragraph that we're concerned with. E.B. White was born in Mount Vernon, New York in 1899 and went to the public schools there. He graduated from Cornell in 1921, worked in New York for a year, and then traveled about. After 5 or 6 years trying many sorts of jobs, plus a year or two of unemployment, he found work with The New Yorker, then in its infancy. The connection proved a happy one and resulted in a steady output of satirical sketches, poems, and editorials. Many of these were unsigned, some were published over the initials EBW. In 1938, he went to the country and wrote essays every month for Harper's Magazine, which have since been made into the book One Man's Meat. Okay, so here's the last paragraph. This is the best part. Mr. White finds writing difficult and bad for one's health, but he keeps at it even so. He would like more than anything to be a poet. The poets, he thinks, are the great ones. He began Stuart Little in the hope of amusing a 6-year-old niece of his, but before he finished it, she had grown up and was reading Hemingway.
It's brilliant.
That's his author's biography. You told me that, so this book was published in 1945, and you, I believe, told me that the reason it just kind of ends and doesn't, like, come to
You told me about this.
So I told you about this? I read this somewhere.
Did you really forget, like, who told who about it?
We're like a mind, one mind, two bodies, one mind. So I don't always remember who thought of what. And I know you do the same thing, because sometimes you tell me something that I told you and you don't remember. Anyway, it's the whole thing. He wrote this book in 1945, or it was published in 1945. He ended the book because he was ill and feared for his life and thought, I just want to wrap this up so, like, it doesn't end in a worse place. Like, if I keep writing and pass before I finish, it might end in a worse place than this. So I'm just going to end it here. He lived for another 40 years
and never revisited it.
No.
I want to get this out of the way because I feel like it only takes 10 seconds to talk about. The ending is the only thing of the book I don't like.
Yeah.
It bums me out that it just ends.
Yeah.
And I wish it wasn't like that. But you know what? That's how it is.
Yeah.
And it's still a classic and it's still wonderful. So I'm not going to complain about it.
Yeah.
But it bums me out.
So I think we should talk about, we haven't really mentioned what this book is about.
No, I think you should read the inside of the book.
Okay.
Not the whole inside of the book.
That would be the book.
The front flap of the dust jacket.
Okay, here we go. Stuart Little by E.B. White.
This, by the way, might be one of the best, quote, back of the books we've ever read.
Yeah. This is the first children's book by the distinguished author E.B. White. Stuart Little, the hero, is a mouse in the family of the Frederick C. Littles and is a pleasantly debonair little character with a shy, engaging manner and a somewhat philosophical turn of mind. He is a great help around the house, and everybody except Snowbell the cat likes him a great deal. In spite of his small size, Stuart gets around a good bit in the world, riding a Fifth Avenue bus with some aplomb, racing and winning in a sailboat in Central Park, teaching school for a day, and so on. His size, just over 2 inches, does give him some trouble now and then, like the time he was rolled up in the window shade or when he got dumped into a garbage scow. But on the whole, his life is a happy one. His great adventure comes when, at the age of 7, he sets out in the world to seek his dearest friend, Margalo, a beautiful little bird who stayed for a few days in the Little's Boston fern. It is on this search, after several amusing experiences, that we leave Stuart, going north in his little car, sure he is heading in the right direction. Stuart Little, small in size only, has the adventurousness, the great purpose, and the indomitable spirit of a heroic figure, and his story, funny and tender and exciting by turns, will be read, reread, and loved by young and old.
So there's the whole thing.
That's the whole thing.
The book does what it says on the tin, and I would say that not only is that a great detailed back of the book, it also, I think, proves a point that I'm going to try to make right now. The thing that makes Stuart Little good is not the story. The story seems to be the thing that he can just kind of throw out there and tell you, oh, yeah, no, he goes and he does this thing and he has a friend and he goes in search of his friend.
Yeah.
The point of the book is the telling of it.
Yeah.
The point of the book is Stuart the character and the way he interacts with people.
Yeah.
That's the part that's unexpected and delightful.
Yes. He's a mouse person. He was born to a family of humans, but is a mouse. That's not explained. Doesn't have to be. He's just a mouse.
It is explained. He says that they have a baby, but it's a mouse.
But it's a mouse. Like, yeah, it's explained.
Was the thing where the doctor is looking in his ear and he says something in the prose about how, and it's very hard for a doctor to look in a mouse's ear without laughing.
Yeah. He races boats in Central Park. He is given a little car by a dentist that can be invisible.
The beginning of the boat chapter is it's so good. One morning when the wind was blowing from the west, Stuart put on his sailor suit and his sailor hat, took his spyglass down from the shelf, and set out for a walk full of the joy of life and the fear of dogs.
Stuart is just such a ridiculous little character. He is self-important in a funny way.
Mm-hmm.
He believes that his actions have a lot of significance. He takes himself very seriously.
Yes.
And he also is kind of scared of girls. Like, there's a whole chapter that goes on for so long about how he almost goes on a date with this girl who is also 2 inches high, which is not explained, but things don't go the way he planned and he has a temper tantrum like a child and just like leaves her and continues on his way, ruining her chances to ever go on a date, I guess, with a mouse man. But like, it's just Stuart sees himself as the hero of his own story and yet is still very funny and interesting and sympathetic. And I feel sometimes when characters see themselves as the hero of their own story, they're like not sympathetic, but somehow he manages to be.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I wonder how much of that is kind of aided by the fact that the book clearly takes place in a reality that is not our own.
Yeah.
Like, if this was a book that took place in our reality, most of the book would be about how the fuck did we have a mouse baby?
Get a mouse baby.
That would be the question.
Yeah.
That's not the question in this book.
Yeah.
The family is kind of shocked, but they get over it. And the doctor is kind of shocked, but he gets over it. And everyone kind of just takes it as read, like, oh, here's a mouse that's talking to me.
Yeah.
And I think you just kind of have to get past it.
Yeah.
And I think doing that is one of the things that allows you to like Stuart a lot more. Because if he was as grandiose as he is, but the main point of the book is how the fuck did mouse baby?
Yeah.
Then it would be weird and distracting and feel like it's not really the thing we should be focusing on right now.
Right.
His character. But that isn't what we're focusing on.
What was the finest thing he'd ever done?
The finest thing he ever done is that he shot an arrow straight into Snowbell's ear.
Right. Okay. So the cat is his nemesis. And there's this whole scene where the cat has a girlfriend. And the girlfriend's like, so there's Stuart, who's a mouse that lives with them. And then
I think we made that clear.
He is visited by a friend, a bird, a pretty little bird who like had an injured wing and is living in their plant in the living room. And Snowbell, the cat, has a sort of a hussy girlfriend who says to him, like, let me get this straight. You have a mouse and a bird that live in your house and you aren't eating them? Like, what is the deal? And Snowbell's like, well, I'm not really supposed to. They're like, the mouse is like a member of the family and the bird is a guest. And the girlfriend is like, but I could eat them. Like, he's not in my family. And Snowbell's like, yeah, I guess. So they make this arrangement that the girlfriend cat will come and eat the mouse and at least the bird, if not also the mouse. And Stuart like sets up camp to protect her, and he writes a note. There's a note that's written about this danger, and he's got his little bow and arrow. And what is the quote? It's so amazing.
This is the finest thing I have ever done, thought Stuart, and he shot the arrow straight into the cat's ear.
There you go.
This was the moment where I think the both of us realized, because like for context, you're reading this out loud while I'm holding our 18-month-old.
Yes.
We weren't ready to laugh as hard as we did in that moment. And, humor is subjective and not everybody responds to the same thing. This is the shit that's in our wheelhouse. This is the shit that makes us laugh.
Yeah.
And it's brilliant. It's brilliant. He is such a well-defined fucking character. It's so good.
There was another part that you really liked. So there are these people that sail model boats on the lake in Central Park, and one of them is a dentist who owns a lovely boat called the Wasp that Stuart really wants to captain. And
he would very much like to captain it, sir, please.
He really, really wants it. And the owner of the boat is like interviewing him like you'd interview like a sea captain to do your boat work. And he's asking him all these questions. And Stuart, like, what's the best line? He says, are you sober? And Stuart says,
do you want me to read it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Are you sober? Asked the owner of the Wasp. I do my work, said Stuart crisply.
Yes, it's so good.
It's that additional crisply.
Crisply. And Stuart is literally a child.
Yep. That's the weird thing about it. Is Stuart a child? Because the voice coming out of the mouse doesn't sound like a child.
No. And he like dresses really sharply and he drives a car, but he also like lives with his mom and dad and is 7. So, but like in mouse years, unclear.
Yeah. I feel like this is one of those, and I'll just set this up because we're going to talk about this when we get into the movie later, is if you're going to adapt this, you've got to make a decision about the voice of the character. He is a boy. He's a child, but you don't have to have him have the voice of a child.
Yeah.
So if you're going to do it, you've got to make a decision either way. And we'll talk about kind of how that decision can play out and maybe where it succeeds and where it doesn't succeed.
Sure.
I feel like we don't quite know where to go from here. I'm sensing that we don't quite know where to go from here because usually we'll go through the plot, but like the plot was on the back of the book.
Yeah, we just read it. Just read it out.
And I kind of made the case that the plot is not what's important.
Yes.
I just think there aren't even that many characters that are that important because there are almost no characters that we spend that much time with other than Stuart.
Mm-hmm.
Like Snowbell, we spend some time with. George, his brother,
Yeah.
he's he's an interesting character,
Yeah.
I think, because he's not like, because he's Stuart's brother and he cares about Stuart. We're given to understand,
Mm-hmm.
but he's not doting on Stuart or anything like that. They're not best friends.
Yeah, and I feel like one of the things that I enjoyed about George is the sort of realistic portrayal of like a teenage boy's kind of dedication to any given project that like floats through his head at any given time. Like he's got all these like unstarted projects and he's very impulsive. Like when Stuart accidentally gets like wrapped up in the window shade and is like screaming for help and they don't hear him. They think he's gone down the mouse hole and like is dead, and George is like, well, if he's dead, I'd better pull down the shades, and starts running around the house like before his parents can stop him, and that's how they find Stuart, because George is like, well, if he's dead, I'd better put the house in mourning. But the thing that I liked, so the trap that I think a movie adaptation might fall into, I won't say whether this one did or not, is like to make the house really convenient for Stuart, to have all kinds of like contraptions and like little lifts and like little holes in doors and like special things adapted for Stuart and his size, because that is something that looks nice on screen and is fun and is, what you might expect.
I mean, we just did The Witches. We're doing like Mouse Kids twice in a row.
Yeah,
and The
like,
Witches is full of stuff like that.
A little mouse roller coaster and everything.
It's fun.
But in the book, it's like Stuart really had trouble in the bathroom because he couldn't turn on the water because he's too little. And George kept proposing this whole system of like how he was going to adapt the bathroom for Stuart, but he never did it. And he just had like a bunch of stuff lying around. So Stuart was forced to like turn on the tap with a hammer whenever he wanted a little bit of water to like wash himself. And that was just like the compromise that they reached.
I just imagine E.B. White and Roald Dahl going to like a brainstorming session together. Imagine a group of authors around a table and they're given a prompt. And the prompt is there's this family and one of the kids is a mouse. And the other kid says, I'm going to make all kinds of great contraptions so you can get around the house easier. That's your prompt. Go ahead and write. Roald Dahl goes away and he writes something fantastical and gives things all kinds of weird names and comes up with amazing contraptions and everything like that. And he comes back in and they read his, chapters that he's written, and everyone's impressed by how lyrical and how delightful it is and how imaginative it is and everything. Then they get to E.B. and they say, okay, E.B., we're going to read yours. And they read it, and it's literally just one paragraph because it just says he had all these great ideas, but then like a teenage boy, he decided to focus on other things. And you know what? Also great.
Yeah.
Fuck it. I love it. I'm on board. I think it's fantastic. I enjoy that both these authors are coming from the same source of inspiration.
He's got a more restrained style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This book's fantastic. I don't really know much what else to say. Like, okay, so what are the things we know coming out of the book that we need to look at? Like, 1, the story is not super important. 2, the dialogue is the flavor of the story. Like the way the author talks, the way Stuart talks, that's the thing that makes the book so delightful. And the character of Stuart is super well defined. He's not a nothing character. He's a really, really well-defined character. I would say those are like the 3 main things that we have coming out of this book that we are going to like look at everything through the lens of. Do you have anything else that you would add to that?
No.
So do you want to move on?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so this was 1945. So in 1966, there was a show called NBC's Children's Theater. It aired from 1963 to 1973. It was basically just every episode was redoing a book that kids read.
Can I sidebar you?
Sure.
When we were looking up which adaptations existed that we needed to watch, you were like, okay, well, there was this like TV episode in 1966, and then there was the 1999 movie, and I was like, no, there was something in the middle, and you were like, there truly wasn't, and I was like, no, I remember, like, there must have been something from the 80s because I remember watching it in school, and you were like, I think what you're remembering is that 1966 Johnny Carson thing. I was like, no, impossible, no, I remember, and then we were turned on the 1966 thing, and I was like, I think this is what we saw in school.
Yeah.
It was like a film strip in school.
And Sinbad played a genie in the movie Shazam.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
it was that kind of thing.
The Mandela effect.
But as you say, Johnny Carson was the narrator of it. One of the funny things about this, so like Johnny Carson, he'd only been hosting The Tonight Show for a few years at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So he's a celebrity, but he wasn't an institution when he did it. So two things about this. One, when we watched it when we were kids, we didn't know who Johnny Carson was.
Yeah.
I didn't know who Johnny Carson was. But even at the time when it came out, I'm sure people were like, oh, it's Johnny Carson. But it would be the same as if like Jimmy Fallon, you know, narrated it.
Yeah.
Jimmy Fallon's not an institution.
Yeah.
Johnny Carson became an institution. I just think it's funny. There are a number of other people that narrated these. I'm really happy about the fact that there's one guy that narrated one of these that didn't narrate this one, and I feel like we dodged a bullet.
Bill Cosby.
Bill Cosby.
Did I get it right?
You did.
Guessed the first time correctly.
Oh, what a monster. It was produced by George A. Heineman and June Raig, and it was written by Raig, I'm not sure. It was weird watching this because, like you, I remembered watching something in elementary school. Like, it's on YouTube, and you can watch it, and it's clearly like a rip of a VHS, which was recorded from a film strip. It does that thing where the sound modulates constantly. The music is constant because it's just the transfer is terrible.
But it's published by like McGraw-Hill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird because I know that this must have been what I watched because there's no other version.
Yeah.
But there's stuff I remember. I think my memory has invented things because there are things I remember that just didn't happen in this.
Yeah.
And maybe there was something else I watched when I was a kid that was about a mouse driving a little red car. But what are the odds of that? I looked and I couldn't find anything. I couldn't think of anything. If anyone listening to this knows, clearly I'm thinking of X, you know.
Yeah.
Please let us know what it is.
Because the way it's shot too is like it's not really a movie.
I mean, it's a movie.
All the shots with Stuart are just like still photos. Like they could not animate the mouse.
No, the mouse is he's a little action figure.
Yeah.
And not everything's a still. It's a lot of stills.
Yeah.
There's a lot of film in it, but Stuart never moves.
So like there might be a scene between like the mom and the doctor, but they're both people. And did anyone ever actually talk in the movie, or it's all like voiceover?
The whole thing felt super weird. It felt like Sesame Street or something like that because you have music and you have film and you have stills, but you never hear anybody. There's no sound design whatsoever. It's all just Johnny Carson talking and narrating the entire thing.
Yeah, it's like Sesame Street explaining, you know, how the crayon factory works, but like the crayon factory people aren't really speaking to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good episode.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, most of it's pulled directly from the text. There was one moment in particular that I remember that I just really enjoyed they're talking about the piano that they have in the house and one of the keys sticks. And in the narration, it's Mrs. Little said that it was because of the damp weather, but the key had been sticking for quite a long time and many days when it wasn't damp.
Yeah.
And I just really appreciate that E.B. White isn't afraid to say that a character's full of shit. It's just an aside. Like, oh, just so you know, Mrs. Little full of shit.
Yeah.
We're going to move on, but just so you know. I don't know. This is one of those weird... I actually thought it was okay. Didn't grab my attention. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fine. I mean, let's see. The boat race is in it.
Yeah.
I did have this is just, it's not even really an adaptation. It's sort of a serviceable thing of Stuart Little, but I had one major issue with it.
Oh, okay.
Margalo isn't a fucking pigeon.
Yes.
They made Margalo into a common pigeon. And the whole point is that she's a beautiful little wren or some type of small bird. And it's so strange that like in this adaptation, like they have Stuart going like, oh, she's so beautiful. She like his whole thing is he's just like madly in love with Margalo because she's so pretty and so beautiful. And you just have this ugly pigeon just like looking at the camera like, what?
Just kind of moving around the little set they've built,
yeah,
knocking everything over
like,
while the little like Stuart action figure is just standing there.
Yeah, like
always looking shocked because he's never moving.
Why did they select this pigeon? Was it the only bird that they could find? Like on the day, did someone just go out and grab? I fear that what happened is that someone just went and grabbed a rando pigeon off the street.
I'm sure it was supplied by some kind of animal company that does animals for movies. I'm sure. I bet this episode was not made for much money.
Yeah,
I was actually really impressed when all is said and done by what they were able to accomplish on what I'm assuming was a very tight timeline and a very tight budget.
Yeah.
Because I've brought this up on the show before that like one of the things about any kind of film or any kind of TV, like one of the things you're managing is you're managing tone. And the tone was kind of spot on the entire time. It always, I think, towed the line really nicely between being too serious and too funny.
Mm-hmm.
It was always just very dry. And that's exactly what the book Stuart Little is.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it captured that really well. It's not amazing. I'm not going to watch it a million times. I watched it when I was a kid and I enjoyed it. It was good.
Like having Johnny Carson do it, I think is good because he sort of, I feel like, sort of got the humor of it in places.
I don't think he brought that much to it, but I don't think he detracted from it in any way.
Yeah.
I think he added to the experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it was appropriate. I just feel like we don't need to spend a ton of time on it, but there's no way we could do this episode without talking about this.
Yeah.
And also, it had to be the one we watched when we were kids.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing else.
There's no other. Can I sidebar? Again, this is like almost unrelated.
Sure.
But it is a story about a bird performer.
Okay. Okay.
So when I was in grad school, one of my classmates was directing a production of The Seagull by Chekhov. And as everyone knows, one of the important props in the play The Seagull is a dead seagull because someone in the play shoots a seagull. And
with Chekhov's gun.
With literally so. Yeah, that's what it's from.
I thought you were talking about a prop in The Seagull. I thought it was the gun.
There's the gun, but there's also the seagull.
Okay.
And there happened to be a lot of seagulls going on. Just then, there was an off-Broadway production of The Seagull that we had seen. And then there was a Broadway production of The Seagull that had come in from the UK. And she sent around this email saying, hey, does anybody have a lead on where I can get a seagull for my performance? And I said, why don't you just ask... You've got connections. Why don't you just ask Classic Stage Company? Like, what did they do with their seagull? And she goes, oh, that seagull is making its Broadway debut because when the UK troupe came in, they couldn't get their seagull past customs. They had to borrow a seagull.
That's amazing.
It's amazing. So anyway, I don't know where she got her seagull in the end, but it's stuck with me ever since. It was the funniest fucking thing. I remember sitting in the library getting that email about the seagull making its Broadway debut.
I'm just saying, if it's that hard to acquire a dead bird, it's got to be kind of hard to acquire a living bird.
Thank you for tying it back to, however tangentially, what we were talking about for our podcast.
Yeah.
I just thought that was a really funny story that I had not told on the show before, as far as I know, and I seized the opportunity.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Do you want to move on?
Sure.
Great.
Let's go forward another 33 years. Stuart Little, just in the culture. Like, this clearly is not Charlotte's Web. Because, I feel like Charlotte's Web was clearly in the culture for a really long time. And Stuart Little is not Charlotte's Web. There weren't, like, movie musicals made of it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But in 1999, there was a Stuart Little that was released. I never saw it. Did you see it?
I don't remember ever seeing this. I mean, I would have been, like, in high school, so like too old to go to a kids movie.
Yeah.
Like no reason to see Stuart Little.
Maybe your younger brothers watched it.
Maybe.
Like on VHS or something
certainly
like that.
Possible.
I kind of missed it too.
Yeah.
It's one of those ones that I never saw it, but I was always aware of it because it's the one where here are the three things that I was always aware of with the 1999 Stuart Little.
Yeah.
1, Michael J. Fox plays Stuart.
Yeah.
2, Hugh Laurie is the dad.
House is the dad.
Yeah, which I wasn't aware of at the time because at the time I didn't know who Hugh Laurie was because I didn't watch a lot of Jeeves and Wooster and Blackadder and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But later I watched House, the shit out of that show.
Yeah.
I don't have much to say about House this episode. I've gone on at length about House before.
It is just really strange, I will say, hearing Hugh Laurie doing his American accent in this movie because it is the voice of House coming out of the mouth of like this very kindly dad character.
Yeah.
It's quite odd.
He's not on drugs at all.
No. Doesn't limp.
No, doesn't yell at anybody.
Doesn't wear a white coat. Wears a lot of orange sweaters.
Well, he never wears a white coat in House.
Does he not?
No, he always just has a sport jacket.
His whole thing, yeah.
Yeah. I know, I guess when he's doing rounds. Even when he's in the clinic, he's not doing that. Because House is always in the clinic. That's the thing.
That's the thing. Because he's being punished by having to go to
Cuddy.
the clinic.
Yeah, Cuddy's always punishing him and making him go to the clinic. And that's usually where he does his funniest stuff and interacts with funny people.
Anyway.
I fucking love House. So, the number 3, here's the third thing that I knew about it. It was written by M. Night Shyamalan.
Listen, he's a working writer.
No, but that's the thing. Like, he wasn't. Like, he's not credited with that much. If you're going to see anything, here's the deal. If you are playing weird Russian roulette with M. Night Shyamalan movies and you're going to say, hey, tonight we're watching a movie written by M. Night Shyamalan, and you load it up, there is a chance you're going to end up watching a Stuart Little.
Yeah, it's like a 1 in 12 maybe.
But way more likely is that you're going to watch something that he directed. It's not like there's a ton of movies written by M. Night Shyamalan that aren't M. Night Shyamalan movies.
Yeah.
And
this is one of them.
It's not like you can recognize any of M. Night Shyamalan in it. Although I guess no. Here's one thing in it that I do think is very M. Night Shyamalan.
Okay.
There is a lot of exposition in this movie. A lot of awkward exposition.
Yeah.
And I've considered myself an M. Night Shyamalan fan at times, not all the time.
Yeah.
He loves his awkward exposition, and this movie has it. So, you know what? I'm going to hold him responsible for that.
Yeah.
Those are the 3 things I knew about this movie.
Yeah.
So then we had to sit down and watch it. Here's a couple things about it. One, it was not just written by M. Night Shyamalan. It was also written by a writer named Greg Brooker. It was directed by Rob Minkoff. He making his live-action debut because he directed many cartoons up until this point, including co-directing The Lion King.
Fucking Lion King.
The whole goddamn Lion King. Was there anyone from The Lion King who makes an appearance in this?
Well, there's as also a voice actor, Nathan Lane.
Yeah.
Yeah, as a Cat Snowbell.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to go through the cast for a second?
Sure.
Okay, so a lot of different people in this. Michael J. Fox, as I said, as Stuart. Gina Davis plays his mother, Eleanor. Hugh Laurie plays Frederick Little. Jonathan Lipnicki plays George Little.
Of course he does.
Fresh off Jerry Maguire, like a couple years later or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Not a cuter kid has ever existed in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Like, it's literally Shirley Temple, Jonathan Lipnicki, and no one else. Not even Haley Joel Osment.
Yeah, I don't think Haley Joel Osment was like famously cute.
No.
He was more like famously precocious.
Right. And famously and amazing.
Yeah.
Bring it back to M. Night Shyamalan for a second.
There it
Haley
is.
Joel Osment was great. Then, when we get into the rest of the cast, it's fucking full of people.
Yeah, this is very weird. This is like for the parents, right? Like they've cast this for the adults to be like, oh, it's that guy. I know him from a thing.
But not so I feel like the thing that happens now is that the people you cast are like big celebrities.
Yeah.
Like I feel like a lot of kids movies tend to do the Muppet movie thing.
Yeah.
Where every adult character is some celebrity that only the parents will know and the kids are not going to know.
But it's like an A-lister.
Right.
Yeah.
You know? Like, it's the one example I will always think of is Angelina Jolie in Kung Fu Panda.
Sure.
I still to this day, I love that movie. I still to this day do not understand why it needed to be Angelina Jolie.
Right.
I don't know what she brought to it. I don't think any kids are walking out of the theater excited that it was Angelina Jolie.
Yeah. But like in this movie, it's like people that the parents will recognize, but like have to look again. It's not like Angelina Jolie level. It's like
No.
Julia Sweeney, Estelle Getty, you know, like who else is in it?
Well, I have a list here.
Okay, go
so
ahead.
Nathan Lane plays Snowbell.
Yeah.
He was good in it.
Yeah.
I didn't think Snowbell was that well written in this movie.
You didn't think the cat was well enough written?
No. Well, you've got Nathan Lane. I feel like one thing Nathan Lane can do is be funny.
Yeah.
But I didn't find Snowbell that funny in this one.
Uh-huh.
Stuart Little too, though.
Yeah.
We'll come back to that in a
come back to
second. Just stick a pin in that. I'm only saying him first because he's next on my list. Jeffrey Jones as Uncle Crenshaw. So there's the Stuart Little. There's the little clan. Hang on. There's the little clan. So there's like uncles and cousins and grandparents, and they're all. It's a who's who. It's a who's who of. Oh, I know that person from something. So Uncle Crenshaw is Jeffrey Jones.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go on.
My notes got increasingly disturbed. Jeffrey Jones, for those who don't know, had I think it was a child porn thing situation.
Oh,
He's
yeah, no, it was.
currently in jail, right? Like
I don't know.
Let's hope.
I know that he had a run-in with the law on child pornography charges.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was just having child pornography. I think it was like wanting to shoot photos. And there is the scene where they need to take a family photo and Jeffrey Jones is like, I'll get the camera.
Well, no. So, right. So, yes. So like my notes become increasingly uncomfortable because first of all, they like the relatives show up at the door and they like fling open the door and there's Jeffrey Jones. We literally looked at each other and went, "Oh no."
Well, I knew earlier because they're looking at like a mantle and there's a family photo with all of the relatives. And I'm like, wait a second, are all of these people in the movie? Because everyone in these photos is somebody.
Yeah.
All of them.
So it was like this increasing, like ramping up of tension. So like first of all,
sense of dread.
So first of all, he appeared. Second of all, as you said, it's like, let's take a family photo. I'll get the camera. No, don't take any pictures. And then like towards the end, it was like, come here and sit on my lap. And we were like, no. We're joking about it, but it was truly uncomfortable and unpleasant.
If you're making movies, this is a risk you take.
Yeah.
And like Jeffrey Jones has come up on the show before because I like him and he's good
in the
things.
Hunt for Red October.
He's good in things that I love. So, and it's a sad thing.
He's in Amadeus, like he's in all kinds of shit.
It's a sad thing. It bums me out. Brian Doyle Murray is in it. Estelle Getty, Harold Gould, Julius Sweeney, Dabney Coleman is the doctor.
But again, these are not A-listers.
No, John Polito is the detective. Remember him? He's like the PI in The Big Lebowski.
Yeah, what is it? The friend of Seamus or whatever it is?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Stan Freberg is the race announcer. Like, not everyone listening is going to know these names, but like someone knows some of these names.
Yeah.
Taylor Negron is the salesman where in a toy store.
Yeah.
He's the one who's selling them like action figure clothes that Stuart can wear.
Right.
Chaz Palminteri, Steve Zahn, Bruno Kirby, Jennifer Tilly all play animals. Like, this casting is all for the adults. None of this casting is for the kids.
Yeah.
I would maintain. So that's crazy. Everyone in this movie is someone.
Yeah.
So I actually feel like I don't quite know where to start with this. Do you want to start with how we felt about it, or do you want to kind of go through the plot?
No, I'd like to go through the plot.
Okay.
Because they make a very big change that I think
they sure do.
Informed a lot of the rest of the movie, and the actual plot of the movie. Stuart is not their natural born son. He is adopted.
Those cowards.
Yeah.
Cowards.
So the whole thing is like they have this one son. They have George, who is a human child, presumably their biological son, although I suppose we don't actually know that for sure. And they have a lot of love in their hearts to give. They have this big house. They have like this rich family, and they are going to adopt another child. And as one does in these modern times, they go down to the local orphanage and like have the kids line up in their uniforms to select one.
They don't make them line up. They're sitting there in the room while all the kids are playing, and they're just kind of looking around at all the children.
Because that's
and
how
also,
it works.
I want to make it clear. I think the implication is they made an appointment.
I
don't think they just showed up.
No, I understand. Like, no, they definitely made an appointment because they're like, today is the day. But like, that's also like, again, I'm nitpicking. That's literally not how it works. So they go and they're having this conversation with Julius Sweeney, who is in charge of the orphanage, as you do. Also, like they've tried to make this very timeless. Like the Littles, like the way that they dress is sort of 50s, but it's definitely like modern. Like if you see the people walking around on the streets, like all the extras are in very, very 90s clothing, whereas the Littles are dressed like a little more retro. And I think they're trying to like kind of place it out of time, but then there's like PS2s in it, so it doesn't really work.
That was
like
the sequel.
Yeah, but still they're doing a similar kind of thing. Like they've dressed the Littles in a very like retro style, and all their glasses are kind of old fashioned. Anyway, so they go to the orphanage. They pick out they're going to pick out a child to take home, and they like meet this mouse child, and he's like, yeah, nobody wants me because I'm a mouse.
Mouse adult, because it is Michael J. Fox talking.
Yeah. But he's he's like Stuart Little. He's a snappy dresser, and they're like, we want him. We've fallen in love with this little mouse. And then there's like a weird, awkward joke about like adopting within your own race that doesn't work.
Species.
Right, I know, but it like clearly there's an implication, right?
Okay.
Like that's the joke. Like that's the joke. The way it's presented in the movie is like, well, she's like, well, we usually advise parents not to, adopt outside their own, and then they like lean in, and she goes, species. So then the question becomes obviously like, are there mouse parents?
Yeah, it opens up a lot.
Yeah.
My big like logical leap that I have to make in this movie is that, okay, people can understand mice, but they can't understand cats.
Yeah.
Because there's lots of talking cats in this movie.
That you don't understand.
Snowbell can't talk to the parents, but Stuart can. And I want to be clear. I'm not criticizing. I'm just describing my experience because this is a kids movie.
Yeah.
It's a movie for kids. I want to make it clear. I'm not saying the movie is not good because of the issue that I had.
Right.
It's just the things I was thinking during it.
It just, as I say, it's just
Snowbell
sort
can
of
talk.
begs the question, if they can't, if they're discouraged from adopting him because they are human people, are there mouse people? I guess there are, because at one point they meet these mice that are posing as his birth parents, and they are able to talk to them. So,
Well, that's because of the cat mafia plot.
right? But we like don't ever see any other mice that talk to people. They're not like integrated into society, you know, as mice. Like, it's very strange. So, okay. So they take him home, and little George does not accept him as his brother at first, but like Stuart is very into being a little. Like, this idea of being a little and what littles do is very, very strong in these movies. It's like we are the littles. We do things a certain way. We have a special greeting that we all greet each other with. Like, there's this extended family, and we're all just like this very close, weird family.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like, you know what it reminded me of a little bit?
What's that?
You know the Brady Bunch movies?
Sure.
Where they're like out of time.
Yeah.
Like they're living in the 70s, but actually they're in the 90s, and they're just they're very distanced from like the modern world that's going on around them. That's kind of what this felt like a little bit.
It did, yeah. There's maybe in a little bit I'll talk about some movies it made me think of.
Yeah.
But I agree with you on that one.
Yeah.
I guess can I throw in something?
Sure.
So this was my big like kind of revelation during this, that I just imagined there was some kind of meeting, the producer or the writers, but someone was trying to figure out how do we crack this, you know? Because there's got to be that conversation at the beginning. Like, we're going to make a movie out of Stuart Little. And you don't ask those questions early on. How are we going to crack this story? You just know you're going to make it. And then you start to do it. And you start to figure out what's our story going to be. Because there's nothing in the book about a cat mafia lying to the Littles and having two people pose as his parents that gave him up, and two mice pose as his parents. Like, that's not in the book. You've got to come up with that kind of stuff. So you got to think like, okay, how do I crack this story? And I just imagine a few people sitting in a room. They're going like, what is this story about? What's it about? Is it about his search for adventure? Is it about Margalo? And someone's looking down at the book and they go like, oh, everyone, shut up. Here's what it is. What's the book called? It's called Stuart Little. That's the movie. It's all about how he's Stuart Little. And that's his big moment, is when he says, I am Stuart Little. That's what we're going to center our movie around. And so they're telegraphing this constantly through the entire thing, where, like, as you say, he joins this family, and we meet the entire family, and we see how weird they are compared to everyone else and how unique they are. And he just really wants to be a part of this family. And I knew there was going to be a line later in the movie where he's going to say, I'm Stuart Little.
And he does.
And he does.
And
it's fine.
You would think, by the way, that the adoption agency would have thought to ask, do you have a cat?
Oh, I would have hoped so.
Yeah.
But nope.
Because that's a danger. That's a danger to the child to come home, and they're like, oh yeah, you'll meet our cat. And he's like, wait, you have a cat? Oh no. So yeah, there's this whole thing where Snowbell is like, I gotta get rid of this mouse. It's not dignified for me, a cat, to be the pet of a mouse. And everyone's like making fun of Snowbell.
All the other cats.
Yeah. There's this whole cat mafia situation. So they send these mice to pose as Stuart's parents to get him out of there, but then they feel sorry for him and they explain what they've done.
Well, they're going to deliver him to the cats to have him be eaten.
Yeah,
but then
they
the two
can't
mice,
do it.
They like Stuart.
Yeah, they
and
like
they
him.
feel bad and they can't do it. And they
can't
confess
do
to
it.
him. What are their names, by the way?
Oh, I don't remember.
The Stouts.
The Stouts. Yeah, the Littles and the Stouts. I get
Yep.
it. You know what my least favorite thing about this movie was?
What's that?
I didn't like Stuart's creepy little mouse hands.
I didn't mind his creepy little mouse hands.
I didn't like them. There was one point where they were like pressed up against a window, and I did not like that at all.
Yeah, the hands didn't really bother me.
I didn't care for it.
Yeah, I genuinely didn't find anything in this movie offensive. There's only one moment that I just genuinely didn't like. I don't know what trope this is. What's the trope where the bad guy, who's clearly the bad guy, and who the hero knows is the bad guy and is untrustworthy, tries to convince the hero that all the other people that the hero cares about don't care about the hero?
Yeah. That must be some.
I don't know what it's called.
It's called something.
But like, essentially all of the Littles decide, oh, we want Stuart back after they've sent him off to live with his, quote unquote parents, as far as they know. We're going to try to find him again. So they're all off searching, but Stuart makes it home and he's talking to Snowbell. He says, where is everybody? And Snowbell says, oh, what did he say? Like
they went to the movies.
Yeah.
They've been so happy since you left. They've been going to like amusement parks and having parties and like all these things. They're just so happy that you're gone.
And Stuart buys it.
Yeah.
And like I said, I don't know what trope that is, but I hate it.
Yeah.
And because Snowbell has always been someone that Stuart couldn't trust.
Yes.
Stuart knows that about Snowbell. So why would he trust him? Now, I feel like if you're going to subvert the trope, then have Stuart go, oh, that's a fun story. I don't believe you.
Yeah.
And then the plot can move on from there.
I would just like say that the movie failed to engage me enough to take me out of it and not care about the minutia of like how this world would work.
Mouse adoptions work.
Yeah, the mouse adoption stuff distracted me. There was one scene. Oh, so instead of getting trapped in the shade, Stuart gets trapped in the washer, the washer dryer.
Yes.
And there was the scene where Mrs. Little was like doing the happily doing the laundry, and I turned to you and I was like, this woman would have staff. Like they're so wealthy and they have such like this heightened lifestyle. On the other hand, the other thing that I said to you about this scene is like I don't mind what is the beat, right? The beat of the plot is a situation has to happen where Stuart is endangered by a normal household thing, and the cat is sort of involved in some way.
Yeah.
And
like him getting caught in the shade.
Yeah, like getting caught in the shade. So instead of getting caught in the shade, they have him get caught in the washer, and like almost drown. And like I don't mind the stakes being heightened. We talked about this a long time ago. We actually talked about this with Anne with an E.
Yeah.
Remember that like there was a scene where like in the original, in the book, the stakes were like, can you or can you not go to a picnic? And this was heightened all the way up to can you or can you not stay here? But it was still like a similar type of
it served the same purpose.
It served the same purpose in the story. Exactly. It was just like it really raised the stakes.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mind that, especially in a movie where you can't spend as much time on any given thing. I actually kind of like it if it's done well, and I actually kind of appreciated that they found the heart of what the scene was supposed to be about, even though it was not exactly the same as in the book.
I think that's one of the things that made the overall. Can I like jump to like how I felt about it overall?
Sure.
That's one of the things that bummed me out overall is that there are these moments where I kind of got the feeling, oh, I think they get the book, like they got the purpose of that scene, as you say.
Yes.
That was one that jumped out to us. I guess just. Here's my two biggest beefs with this movie. One of them I will stand behind as a really genuine beef that I think is important. And the other one, I don't know, it's important to me, but I'm not going to it's not the hill I'm going to die on. That one is, it's a fine kids movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be totally fine for any kid to watch this movie. It's fine. It's fine. It's a fine kids movie. It's like generally inoffensive. I don't think anyone's bad in it. I think the performances tend to be good and fun, and Stuart's cute.
Other than the Jeffrey Jones thing.
Which is
unfortunate.
The movie is just kind of inoffensive. It just exists. It's fine. And that's, I guess, my biggest criticism against it is that it certainly didn't do the thing the book does, which is be fun for kids and also fun for adults.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, not every kids movie is going to be a Pixar movie. Not every kids movie is going to be not only good for kids, but also good for the adults in the crowd. But if you're basing it on a book that's kind of defined by how well it, entertains both the young and the not so young, then if you don't do that in your movie, and the only way you really address an older crowd is by casting a whole bunch of people that anyone over the age of like 30 is watching going, I know them. It's Estelle Getty. This is great. Like, if that's the only thing you're doing, then I don't think you're doing enough, because you're not doing anything that's based on story or dialogue or motivations.
Yeah.
You're just doing casting, and that's not enough. That's a cheat.
Yeah.
So that's my biggest kind of overall beef with it. But then I have a more specific beef.
Okay.
Which is something that, if we are looking at it purely as an adaptation of Stuart Little, I think they just get the character wrong.
Yeah.
And this keeps coming up on the show. I feel like recently it's come up on the show way more than it ever has before. Stuart Little, you went through before all the different ways that Stuart Little is like a well-defined character in the book.
Yes.
We know what type of person he is. We know what his voice sounds like. We know what things are important to him. And he's not just this like philosophical character who's always telling people how they should feel, and everyone looks at him, oh, he's so wise beyond his years and everything. What is this character in the movie?
Yeah, he's just like a whiny kid. He's just like I mean, he wants a family. That motivation is very clear.
Yeah.
You know, and that is, you know, one of the classic motivations, right? Somebody wants a family. We can understand that.
Sure.
But like, yeah, he's like just kind of he's like, I wear red sneakers. You know, like his person it feels so strange to be dissecting this in this way because it is a dumb kids movie.
No one else is going to do it.
Yeah. What are we here for if not to like pick apart kids movies from 20 years ago?
22 years ago.
Oh my god. I don't know. But you're right. Like you're right. This is a very watered down version. Somebody was like, it's a mouse who's a boy. He's a boy mouse. And that was sort of as far as they got.
Yeah.
Right?
He's really nice.
Yeah.
He's really sweet.
He's a good friend.
He never says any. Here's the problem I have with Stuart in the movie. Stuart never says anything funny. Never once does a funny line pass his lips. The comedy of Stuart is always, look at the situation Stuart got himself into.
He's a mouse. Did you know he's a mouse? He's very small.
What kind of funny, delightful things, what kind of trouble can a mouse get into?
What hijinks?
And yeah, there's hijinks, but the thing that's great about the book is that Stuart will just say something that is something you would never expect him to say. And it's just the voice of the author comes through. We read some of our favorite lines before. None of that makes its way into this movie.
Yeah.
This character has just had I don't even want to say the rough edges. I just want to say the angles. Like Stuart Little as a character, if I were to come up with like a shape, he's a very angular shape. There's lots of points coming off of him. There's lots of layers to him that you can examine. This Stuart is just kind of nothing.
Yeah.
He's just nice. That's all this Stuart is. He's nice. He's kind of defined by how nice he is. The Littles adopt him because he seems really nice. And the Stouts decide to not feed him to the cats and tell him the truth because he's nice and they like him. And that's fine. I don't mind a kid's movie that's kind of defined by how nice the main character is, but there's nothing about him. Here, I mentioned before that I was going to talk about a movie that, like, going through this experience made me think of. You still haven't watched either of the Paddington movies.
That's correct.
I tell you, they are a goddamn delight.
You have said so.
And I feel like the world is pretty much unified either in one of two camps. One camp hasn't seen them, and the other camp loves them.
Yeah.
And rightfully so. They're delightful movies. They are so good, but they do exactly the kind of thing that I'm talking about this movie not doing, which is that they take the character of Paddington and they make him a fully fledged character. He not only does things that are unexpected, and usually the situations he gets himself into are a result of his own actions. They aren't just things that happen to him. And he also is a funny character. He says funny things.
Yeah.
And they illustrate his character and they define his character. And if you were to do something in a sequel that didn't feel like the character, you would go, well, wait a second, Paddington would never do that. Whereas Stuart, I think I could accept Stuart doing almost anything because nothing that he would do would make me go, oh, this Stuart would never do that, because I don't know what this Stuart would do. I don't think he would do much of anything other than be nice.
Yeah.
Like, and I mean nice in a bad way, like not nice in a aspirational, let's think about how we can be kind to other people way. He's just fine.
Yeah.
He's a nice kid.
Yeah. And even so, they went ahead and made a sequel.
And you know what?
It was a little better.
It was a little better. I didn't like the first one. I kind of liked the second one. And it's no surprise that they made a sequel. The first one made $300 million worldwide. Like, it was a hit. It was a big hit. And of course,
I just like spit out my drink.
Did you not know that?
No.
Yeah, made a ton of money. And then of course, like what is the most predictable crime in all of movie history is that the sequel that's better than the original makes less money.
Yeah.
They're finally on the right track. We finally have evidence that they're on the right track and they're starting to really get in their groove and figure out how to make these. But then we never get the really good one because it didn't make enough money. And so instead they made a part 3 that was like straight to video that we watched a few minutes of. But it was like,
it was animated. It was like not the same.
The animation is kind of horrifying and we just didn't
really
watch it.
I wouldn't say that they made too much progress on the character of Stuart
No.
in Stuart Little 2. Like, I think it had all the same problems that you had just identified.
Yep.
But I actually think just the general writing was a little better.
Yes.
It almost felt like Nathan Lane had brought people in to punch up his dialogue because he got
like Alan Rickman in Robin Hood style.
Yeah, because the character got so much funnier, the character of the cat, and we really like fell in love with Nathan Lane's performance.
Snowbell's my favorite part of the movie.
It was
and
so
Snowbell
good.
was nothing in the first one. He was a waste of Nathan Lane's time. Nathan Lane came in, recorded for a day, it seems like, and that was it. Also, like the special effects, which I didn't really talk about, Stuart doesn't look great in the first one. I understand it was 1999. He looks better in the second one.
Even his little mouse hands are like slightly better.
The cat effects, though, I just have a problem with this the entire time. I guess I understand the thinking behind, you look at what is the most effective way that we can have talking cats in our movie. Well, we could animate the cats the same way we animate the mouse. And you're going to have animators saying like, well, look, here's the deal. You guys, you don't understand. It's not even the year. It's the year 1999. I can't do an animated cat. I can't make it look good. It's not going to look good. You know what we could do? You could use live action cats and then we could make their mouths move. We could do that. I could give you a mouth. And like, that's a thing that's been done a million times. It never works for me because at the end of the day, it just looks like a cat who's on set looking at whatever the fuck it wants to look at. And it's never emoting.
Yeah.
Like its eyes are never responding the way.
Cats just have dead eyes.
Wait, this was one thing that was funny to us, that like Nathan Lane can scream really well and Snowbell never, like we never get that fun Nathan Lane like, ah, in the first one.
But in the second one, they figured out how to animate a scream.
Right? And it kind of works, but not even that well. So that's just a problem I had. Like, none of the talking cats really work for me.
It's kind of like in Lord of the Rings, one of the stories they tell on the, the special features is like, when they started filming, they did not have the technology to animate fire, but by the time they finished, someone had invented it, like the Balrog's fire. When they started filming, they literally didn't know how they were gonna do it, and like someone somewhere they didn't invent it for the movie, like someone somewhere invented it, is my understanding. And they were able to use it.
Can I do a quick sidebar?
That a sidebar to my sidebar, or a sidebar to the original conversation?
A sidebar to your sidebar.
Okay.
I always think about this whenever like the behind the scenes on Lord of the Rings comes up, and I'm stealing this from a friend of mine from college, and what he said has stuck with me for fucking 20 years. And he said, the behind the scenes on the Lord of the Rings, all those hours of appendices, do you know what they all are? It's just hours and hours of Dominic Monaghan and Billy Boyd telling the same story, which is basically Billy Boyd going like, and then I went up behind him and I tapped him on his right shoulder. But really, I was on his left. And then he looked to the right, but I wasn't there. I was on his left. That's basically all of the hours of the behind the scenes on Lord of the Rings.
I don't care. It's
Anything
delightful.
where you're talking to an actor.
Delightful.
That's all it is.
Anyway.
Back to Stuart Little 2.
Stuart Little 2.
Which came out in 2002.
Stuart Little 2, Electric Boogaloo.
You made that joke. You didn't even know what that was from.
No.
You never even heard of the movie Breakin' or Breakin' 2 or Electric Boogaloo. I was happy that I got to tell you about that for the first time. So can I go through like kind of the differences between this one and the first one?
Yeah.
Firstly, it seems to have been written by people who wanted to make it more like the book than the first one was. Because there seemed to be a lot more of the events of the book in this one.
Yeah, well, we get Margalo for sure.
We get Margalo. Stuart has his little bow and arrow.
Yep.
So there's more of that. It felt a little closer to the book.
Yeah.
Not in tone, but in plot.
Yeah, and he's got his car, which he had in the first movie too, but like
Yep.
he's got his car that he drives to school every day. He's got his like bow and arrow.
He's got to go find Margalo.
He's got to go find Margalo. I mean, the story of Margalo is different.
Very, very different.
She's an imposter. Well, she's sort of an imposter.
When I say it's closer, I mean it's like 5% closer.
Yeah. I think, and when we say it's better, we're saying it's like 5% better. We're not saying like this was a great movie.
No, but it's 5%. This has come up before, but like the idea that like let's say you are, if the total of your feelings toward a movie can be 100.
Yeah.
If you're at anything under a 50, you don't like it. But if you're above a 50, you do kind of like it.
I was using this description to somebody just today, but like it, like maybe pushes it over the edge to like a 51 that we like kind of liked it.
I think I was like a 40 on the first one, and I was like a 55 on this one. So like I kind of liked it. The improvements actually did something for me. So it's got a little bit more. So that's good. It is just funnier.
Yeah.
Snowbell's funnier. The cats are funnier. The stuff that happens is funnier. The lines are funnier. Snowbell's actually funny, which is great.
Which is great. And he's got like he like goes on a journey. Like he comes to like Stuart by the end. So we get Margot played by Melanie Griffith.
Yep.
I believe. I did not find her voice acting to be particularly engaging.
I kind of liked her. I actually thought Melanie Griffith was pretty good.
I didn't think she was very good.
That's fine.
Her acting, as I mentioned to you earlier, reminded me of this is a deep cut. In the movie Noise is Off, Julie Haggerty has to act badly.
Yeah.
She's playing the stage manager who gets like tossed on stage to like understudy for someone, and so the way that she reads the line is like, "Why did I lock the door? Why did you lock the door?" And there were several moments in Melanie Griffith's acting that reminded me of that specific reference.
I think you picked up on those a little bit more than I did.
That's fine.
I thought she was okay.
That's okay.
I didn't mind her that much.
That's all right.
There's a new character who's been added.
Mm-hmm.
Martha Little. She's the new baby.
She's a baby.
And this is a thing that we never would have talked about on the show before we had a kid.
You'll understand someday.
But now we talk about it now. I would love for you to talk about it, but please try not to spend more than 30 seconds on it.
I did not understand how old this baby was supposed to be. She was clearly like probably between 1.5 and 2, and they were like talking about how she like hadn't said her first words, and like
didn't they say at one point that she was like 9 months old?
They said something about like, well, all the littles talk by 9 months old, and I was like, that baby is twice that, at least. And she was very cute, but like they definitely, it was very unclear to me how old the child was supposed to be because she was a toddler. Clearly, it was maybe
Again,
a toddler playing a baby.
This is the thing we never noticed before.
We never would have noticed this before. And I frankly still don't have a good like bead on like how old any given child is, because our kid is a high growth percentile. He's very tall and big, but he also didn't walk until he was 17 months old. So I see these like tiny little nuggets like running and walking around, and I'm like, I don't know how old that kid is. I'm very confused.
Anyway, okay.
Anyway.
Baby stuff over. Another character that was added is the character of Will. This is George's friend from school, played by a young actor named Mark John Jeffries. I'm going to say something controversial. He is a way better actor than Jonathan Lipnicki.
Yeah.
This kid's great.
It's great.
He's so good. Will was like, in so many moments, was my favorite character in the movie.
And he's got a PS2.
And he has a PS2, which is the most 2002 thing that this movie could possibly have done. So he's new. There are way fewer like, hey, it's that guy or hey, it's that lady. The two that jumped out at me, Brad Garrett is the plumber in one scene. He's Rob the plumber. And I looked at it like Everybody Loves Raymond had been on the air for years at this point. So he wasn't just working actor Brad Garrett.
Yeah.
He's
like,
hey,
this is a cameo.
Like, hey, it's the guy from Everybody Loves Raymond.
Yeah, this is a famous person doing a cameo.
Right.
Yeah.
And Maria Bamford plays the kid's teacher, and she's only in one scene.
That I think was Maria Bamford working actor.
Yeah,
I don't think that was Maria Bamford doing a cameo.
No, it clearly was, because Maria Bamford in 2002, like, Maria Bamford is Maria Bamford now, but not even to that many people.
Yeah.
She wasn't Maria Bamford to anyone in 2002.
Right.
But I was delighted to see her.
There you go.
Melanie Griffith is Margalo. We differ slightly. Again, I don't think we're that far apart.
May not be that far apart. That's fine.
Here's a new character, though. Falcon.
Yeah.
Played by James Woods.
Oh, man.
Famous, wonderful person, James Woods, who's never had an unkind word to say about anybody. He's kind of a piece of shit. But James Woods coming hot off playing Hades in Hercules.
This is sort of the same kind of role, really.
He's playing the villain who's just kind of, he's had it up to here. He's past
where he thought he could go. Yep, there it is.
And
I don't even watch that show, but it's so brilliant.
So there was a moment with Margalo that I caught that you missed, because Margalo falls into Stuart's car. She's being chased by a falcon. He brings her home, and they're talking. And in the scene where he's talking to her in the house, somehow Mrs. Little's jewelry box comes up.
Yeah.
And she really wants to know about the jewelry box.
Oh, God, this thing with the ring. Yeah, it's
right?
So confusing.
And so immediately, I'm like, oh, they're telegraphing it. She's an antagonist. She's lying to Stuart. She's there to steal something, blah, 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 blah. You kind of missed that line. And so later, when it does turn out that she's bad, you were like, where's this coming from? I'm like, no, they did the thing. They did their due diligence. They told you she was clearly too interested in something she shouldn't be, which tells you that she's not on the up and up.
But like Falcon wants Mrs. Little's big diamond ring. Of all the rings in New York City, he has to have this ring.
Yeah.
Like, for a reason that's not explained.
They definitely have I'm going to get, what is it? Oliver Twist and Fagin?
Yeah.
Is that the relationship that they've got going on?
Let's say yes.
He's the criminal mastermind,
Yeah.
and Margalo is his captive.
His stool pigeon, if you will.
I mean, kind of.
Is that what that means?
No.
Oh.
That's okay. I love you.
It's okay.
And so there's a relationship between the two of them. She wasn't really being chased by Falcon. So there's this whole undercurrent.
And then there's a whole...
Which not, like, to me, there's no greater difference between the Margalo we have in the movie and the Margalo in the book than the scene she has with Falcon where she's saying, "You can't make me do this. They're really nice." I compare that to, this is what Margalo sounds like in the book. "My name is Margalo," said the bird, softly, in a musical voice. "I come from fields once tall with wheat, from pastures deep in fern and thistle. I am from vales of meadowsweet, and I love to whistle."
That's all Margalo is.
That's Margalo.
Margalo's
is
just like a little bird, like do.
Like a real, you know what? I'll even throw this out there. And this would have been good. Margalo's kind of a manic pixie dream girl.
Yeah, a little bit.
And I'm a little bummed that Margalo wasn't that.
Yeah, she was like
movie.
A street smart urchin bird stealing rings and giving them back.
Yeah.
I think it would have been funnier if she had swallowed the ring and like pooped it out instead of just like hiding it in her feathers.
You know, poop is funny.
Yeah, it is funny.
I don't think it's not us for it's not for us to say that poop is not funny.
But again, like some indication that someone read the book, right? Because like Mrs. Little thinks that she dropped the ring down the drain and then they have to go down the drain. Like Stuart goes down the drain to see if he can get it. Why are you laughing?
I'm looking at my notes. Why did I write down I'm not going to Google mouse penis? You said this. Why did you say this when we were watching the movie? Why did you say I'm not going to Google mouse penis?
I don't remember.
Was it something about, I know, Stuart and Margalo go on their date and they're watching a movie in the car and you thought they were just hugging. He just had his arm around her, but you thought they were going to do stuff. And then you decided to go on a little tear about like, wait, do mice have the penis that's like mostly inside and then it comes outside? And you picked up your phone and you put it back down because you made the decision. You said, I am not going to Google mouse penis.
And I think that was the right decision.
I
stand by it.
It clearly was. And then I know the very next thing you said, because I picked up my phone and you said, did you just write down that I said I'm not going to Google mouse penis? And I have those in my notes right there, because of course I'm going to write that down. Oh, Jesus.
We're coming to the end.
So there's a plot, like the whole plot, and there's little subplots here and there, like, it has the thing with the garbage, like barge from the book. Like Stuart gets trapped on it.
Yeah.
And
again, like actual scenes from the book.
Yeah. And in the movie, though, he's not rescued by Margalo because he has to rescue Margalo. Instead, he finds the toy airplane that George built that Stuart wrecked. He flew and wrecked earlier in the movie. I actually thought that scene was fucking gold. When he's flying the airplane around the house and everybody's diving out of the way, I thought it was beautifully done. I had no problem with it. I thought it was great. But then he wrecks the plane. They throw it out. But luckily, it's on the barge and he rebuilds it and he flies this garbage plane back to land. And then he uses that during the entire, denouement, where he's like, it's a big air chase and Margalo's in the plane with him and Falcon's chasing them and all this kind of stuff. And it's all fine. And there's like a giant, everything kind of comes together at the building where Falcon is living, like up in the roost and up in the tower.
Yeah.
And he's got Margalo up there. So Stuart goes up there with his little bow and arrow.
Yeah.
And it was just,
this is the finest thing I've ever done.
It is the moment where he's aiming it at Falcon, and it makes me so sad that at no point did anyone say, Stuart is the kind of character who would say, as we know from the book, upon being able to shoot an arrow at his nemesis, this is the finest thing I have ever done. Instead, Stuart says, nothing.
Yeah.
And he fires the arrow and it bounces off Falcon's face. It just is a missed opportunity.
It's just I just think really sums up the way that the adapters did not get the humor of the original book and or did not really care about it. Because that is the scene. Like, it's so perfect. Like, He should say this is the finest thing I've ever done because it's the funniest line in the book, and he doesn't say it as he like draws his arrow back to shoot, his bird nemesis.
Like, the best thing I can say is that it does give me the sense that they actually read the book.
Yes.
Whereas the first one did not.
Correct.
And this one just works better. The pace is better. The plot is better. It's more engaging.
The cat is funnier.
The cat's so much funnier. Like, it is a better movie, I would say, in every respect. The animation has gotten better. The special effects have gotten better. I think Falcon is more compelling a villain than, like, Chaz Palminteri as the mafia cat.
Yeah.
Which kind of just did nothing for me. It's like Stuart Little 2 is a fun movie. I look forward years from now. I am sure Calvin is going to be on like HBO Max, and he's going to say like, "What is Stuart? Oh, it's the book you like. Is Stuart Little?" I say, "We're going to skip the first one, buddy. We're just going to watch Stuart Little 2." And I'm sure that it won't work, and I'm sure we're going to end up watching the first
watch
one.
all of them.
And
It's
I'll watch it. It's fine because it's a fine kids movie. And
And
the only problem with it is that these two douchebags who are adults and have a podcast don't like it.
But we will watch it again one day, surely, with our beloved son.
But then when Stuart Little 2 comes up, you know what? We're going to watch that one.
Yeah.
Because that one's a fun movie.
Yeah.
So, yeah, end of the day,
Do you want to wrap this up?
fine kids movies. Would you like to do some quadrants?
Let's do it.
Okay, 1966 episode of NBC's Children's Theater. Do you think they cared about the source material?
No.
No?
Sure. I don't know. It's hard to tell. Unclear. Ask again later.
I would say yes. I think there was a joy in it that I think comes from enjoying the book. And also the book wasn't that old at this point.
Sure.
So I would go ahead and guess that it was made by people that saw the value and saw the quality of the book.
Yeah.
I think they appreciated it. Was it successful?
Sure.
Sure.
Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a ton of...
It's hard to evaluate based on the fact that it's literally a film strip, for school.
I am sure that librarians across the country would agree that, yes, it's successful. Why would we show it to kids if it wasn't successful?
Kids love it.
The kids love it. 1999 Stuart Little.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think they cared about the book?
It does not seem so.
I think they cared about the idea of caring about the book.
Yeah, I mean, they cared about something, which was this idea of a mouseboy, but they did not care about the spirit of who that mouseboy was.
No.
So I'm gonna say no.
Was it successful?
I'm gonna say no.
I'm also gonna say no, even though it's a fine kids movie. It's okay.
Yes.
Stuart Little 2, do you think they cared about the source material?
More so.
A little more.
A little more.
And was it successful?
A little more.
Yeah.
Do you think it pushed it over the line into
Definitely.
successful?
I think Stuart Little 2 is successful.
All right, that's great. That's great news.
I enjoyed it. Well, this has been Adapter Parish. If you'd like to find us online, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at AdaptCast. You can join our groups on Facebook and Goodreads, and you can also find and follow me on Letterboxd. If you have anything to say that's longer than a tweet, you can always send an email to adapterparishcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to support the show, there are 3 great ways you can do it. First, tell a friend. Second, a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice would be greatly appreciated. Third, we are on Patreon. This show will always be free, but if you become a patron, you can get access to Adapter Parish Plus, our bonus show that releases every other week between episodes of this show, and our patron-only Slack community. It's been a lot of fun, and all the details are at patreon.com/adaptcast. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the job we've done on this episode?
It's the finest thing I've ever done.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.